Hey, before we get started on today's show, I want to share with you something that you may not be familiar with, and that's the Mindset Mastery Movement. Not that long ago, I started the Mindset Mastery Movement. And what it is it's a group coaching program that brings like minded individuals, primarily entrepreneurs, professionals, executives, together to really go into a deeper dive on the concepts that help you create your ideal life. And for many of you listening, you might be working on your business. How do I grow that? How do I grow my income to new levels, my financial life, my wealth? It could be working on your body and your health, as I am right now, too. It could be relationships. Ultimately, what I learned a long time ago was that anything and everything you've ever wanted is available to you, and it comes to you and through you by understanding some natural laws and universal laws and how to work with your mind and the universe around you. So we do a deep dive on that. We do Q&A once a month, group coaching. We do a live training for 90 minutes. And right now the doors are closed for it, but I want to give you an opportunity to get on the wait list to be the very first to know when we open the doors for new members. So if you like the sounds of that, go to www.benspangle.com/MMM and get yourself on the wait list, or you can click the link below in the show notes. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I've got Ryan Alford with me, and man, you are going to love learning from him. Some of you probably already know him, but those of you that don't, he's an entrepreneur. He's a marketing maven. We're going to talk a lot about marketing today. Goal chaser. I know you were mentioning how you built 5 different companies now, and also host of the #1 marketing podcast on Apple, which is pretty exciting. So, Ryan, thanks, man. I'm looking forward to it today.
Ben, my pleasure, man. I'm pumped to be here with you and to add as much value as I can. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So I know you've been in, from what I gather, the marketing advertising space for a couple decades now, I think, right?
That's right.
So I can only imagine you've seen the landscape change so much. But I do want for myself to know and for our audience to know what got you into that. How did you end up in that world, and maybe a bit of your backstory into, we know who you are today, but yeah, tell us a bit on that.
Yeah, man. I am the product of 2 entrepreneurs. My mom and dad had multiple side hustles as we grew up. I call it the lower middle class in South Carolina. I don't quite feel honored enough to say middle class. We were,
Okay.
My mom's Dodge Dart that barely started, and when you turned it off, made that
Yeah.
for 30 seconds when we go somewhere, and the embarrassment that came with it. I don't know that embarrassment was reserved for the middle class. It feels like lower middle class.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I grew up with 2 entrepreneur family. The whole Alford clan is very entrepreneuristic. I don't know at what level of success, but definitely driven by their own beat and, making money themselves and working, on their own kind of sweat equity. And so, but I knew quickly about myself that I was kind of a natural marketer. I don't know if I was a natural salesperson, but definitely understood consumer behavior and kind of what drove people. I could kind of see that a bit, and went into marketing at Clemson University. Go Tigers. And one of those few people that I didn't change majors 7 times. I didn't do, I didn't have to go that route of figuring out what I wanted to do. I went straight into the ad agency business right out of school, working at the largest agency in South Carolina. It was called Irwin Penland at the time, now called EP & Co. And proceeded to work there for 13 years. I talk about the entrepreneurial journey, but it was a very entrepreneurialistic agency, and got started in 2001 on a small regional account called Verizon Wireless. It was a nice piece of business for the agency. We had a regional piece of their business. It was obviously the kind of start of the booming era of the wireless industry. And I proceeded to work with Verizon and grow that piece of business from roughly a $3 million annual revenue into over 13 years to a $40 million annual retainer for the agency. Those kind of retainers don't exist anymore in the agency business, but got to work on a lot of things underneath that umbrella. Every probably popular smartphone launch in the history of wireless, the first iPhone, BlackBerry launches, every Samsung, the Galaxy lineup, and then indirectly worked with the NFL, multiple other entities, Audi, some of the largest brands in the world. Ended up opening a New York office for EP in 2009, lived there for 5 years, and worked on some of the most recognizable ad campaigns and helped develop the strategies and tactics, both at a retail and brand level, working with both Verizon, other agencies, and other entities over that period. And then ultimately other brands, just by the nature of working in an agency and have multiple clients. And so really kind of got to see both sides of the analog era into the digital area of marketing and advertising, because when I came in, TV, radio, outdoor, that was the way you got your traditional mediums, was the way you got your word out. And ironically, was ushering in the smartphone era, which was bringing in the digital era of advertising. And so have lived on both sides of those camps. Consider myself both a traditional and digital specialist, kind of coming up through that, but did it through the lens of working on the agency side primarily. But, I worked very hand in hand. I was 27 years old. I was working with the C-suite of Verizon Wireless. Got to do some exciting things. I was never afraid to speak my mind, and it served me well. Usually something good came out of it, not always, but I wasn't afraid to share my opinion, and always kind of thought I kind of had two sides of the brain, strategy and creative. Most people, it's one or the other.
Right.
And so got to do that. And that kind of laid the I guess the groundwork for the early part of my marketing career, but a lot to experience.
Yeah, no kidding. And when did you branch out on your own? So you're working through the agency. You said it was an entrepreneurial type environment, but at some point you left to start your own company.
Yep. It was 2013. So had been with the agency for right at 13 years and left the agency. And, there's kind of two parts to that story. I started out, for some reason, decided to follow a passion. I love the guys. I respect Gary Vee, but I'm one of those people that calls bullshit on following your passion. Having been one that's followed my passion instead of what I was good at, I went into the car business and did what was pretty much the Carvana concept before it existed, which was a great concept of online, buy your car, delivered to your door. Proceeded to lose $1 million following my passion and decided to go back to what I do well, and then started my own agency, 4 years later. So it was roughly about 6 to 7 years ago, started the Radcast, which you mentioned is the #1 marketing podcast on Apple, and then investing heavily in my personal brand. But that's all been in the last 7 years. But the entrepreneurial journey started with a little crash and burn, to be honest and frank and transparent.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how you jump into that and chasing that, and then I guess connecting the dots for some, because I think, some people, there's probably that level of, this is what I'd really love to do with my life, but if the skill's not there, and I think what you're saying for you, it was what was I good at? What was I great at? And bringing that to the table.
Yeah, 100%.
It's awesome, man. It's really awesome. I'd really like to spend a lot of time today, and I know you're an expert in this, but is this idea on personal branding, social media. Obviously, there's tons of information out there. And I mean, if you're on social media, everyone's trying to give you their peace of mind on what it is, but you're a pro at it. So tell me a bit about, as you transitioned into that journey yourself, and maybe for yourself personally, the top lessons that you've learned in that space. And if you're okay, we'll probably get to some great tactical stuff too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have a trademark on a phrase that is, it pays to be known. I'll use myself as the example. Coming out of the, working for other era, and let's even putting to bed the crash and burn false start in the entrepreneur base, I'd worked on and had as much validity and credibility in the marketing and advertising business as anyone my age at my level, circa in 2015.
Okay.
But no one knew who I was. No one. I had worked on, my first campaign, Can You Hear Me Now? One of the most recognizable ad campaigns in the history of marketing. The first iPhone launch, multiple Samsung Galaxies, Audi launches, worked on Budweiser campaigns. Almost every known ad campaign of the last like 15 years, I may have been involved in, and not everyone. There's hundreds of thousands of campaigns, but many recognizable household name campaigns.
Yeah.
But no one knew who I was at all.
Right.
I had 300 followers on Instagram, your normal LinkedIn connections and all these things. And I had a great, Rolodex, but really no one in the main sphere of business and outside of my circle knew who I was. Mm-hmm. And I had started to see and was, quite frankly, I was annoyed with myself, not annoyed with others, but the marketing ninjas and the marketing this that you'd see online. I'm wait a second. If anyone's a marketing ninja, I'm a samurai, if that's the moniker we're going to use. And so, it was less knocking on them because I didn't know necessarily what they'd done, but I know what I had, but no one else did.
Right.
So the light switch flipped on for me that if more people that know what you've done and know your credibility, the more opportunities and doors they get open. And I think that's the thing that when people would think about, and look, I know it. Let's just call all the spade. The elephant in the room. Everyone hates the word personal branding, or a lot of people do. It's cringeworthy, like all the personal, it's roll your eyes, all that stuff. Once you could get over that, put that to the side and just focus on the benefits and what it truly is. And if you can unlock in your brain that the more people that know who I am, the more opportunities that get unlocked. Now, are there 7 other phases, like you said, tactical things? Are there other things that go with that? Absolutely. And it's not just being known, like, well, let me post this picture of me with the Lambo, looking cool. No, you have to have skills. The more people, you got to add on to that statement. It pays to be known. It pays to be known for what you're good at, that you add value to, that, gives you credibility. There's a lot of things that go underneath that. But once you unlock in your brain that I understand, the more people that know me, the more opportunities I have, the more opportunities I have, the more chances I get to be successful. And so once you unlock that in your brain, that's the first step. But you have to truly believe that. And I think what happens is people see all the tactics, they do all the things, but they haven't fundamentally accepted that truth. And they just think, well, everyone else is doing it, so it must work. It must be good for business. But they haven't completely understood that simple fact. And that's what I try to unlock for people first and foremost. Is it's no different, using the basketball analogy. You can't score 20 points unless you shoot 10 shots. So, it's simple formula here. The more shots you get, the more opportunities you get to score. And the more people that know who you are, the more doors that get open. Now, the second phase of that is unlocking the fact that people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And unless you're a scumbag, look, and I didn't coin this phrase or this thought, but it's so true. If you have a lot of skeletons and you're just a bad person, and skeletons are okay, by the way, but you're just a bad person and you're beating on your wife and your kids hate you and you're just a bad girl or guy, then personal branding is just going to amplify a really bad fire.
For sure. Yeah.
But, however, assuming you're like most people, and I choose to believe that most people are good and have a lot of value to add.
Yeah.
When you unlock that and you start to amplify, you start to open doors that you haven't really even been invited in yet. What do I mean by that? So when you're on social media, and that's where most personal branding takes place, even though we'll talk a little bit more in tactical things about PR and different other tactics. But social media, you get organic reach and you get opportunities with or without ads where people share things, they like things, whether it's, and it's so funny, people get only had 100 likes. But imagine a room full of 100 people. That's a lot of people. We get so caught up in these vanity metrics, 100 of this, 1,000 this. We get numb to the fact that, oh, I didn't get 20,000 of this. Give me a break. You should be happy with 15. Those 15, there might be 3 people that could do business with you, but they get to see you. They get to see what you're sharing. They get to know you before you ever even physically meet them, whether that's a Zoom call or whatever. And so you start to unlock these opportunities because you're sharing your perspective and you're ultimately giving people a glimpse behind the curtain before you even meet them. And I think those things are the things that are crucial in kind of unlocking those opportunities.
Yeah, it's, as you said, that I've never heard someone put it that way, but I love the concept of just the more people that know who you are, the more opportunities you're opening up. Where I think that, and I can even speak for myself, a lot of social media, there was a time for me where I felt like I had to, because, again, to your point, everybody else is doing it. And it's a way to get the name out there for sure.
Yeah, because I think people are telling people how to do it, how to do social. But what's crucial is why.
Right.
And it seems simple, but you'd be shocked at how he'll, I know I should be doing this, but I'm not sure why. Well, here's why.
Yeah. And so I'm listening, I'm saying, yes, now that makes more sense. And maybe they're not quite that, they're an entrepreneur, but they're not quite active on it right now.
Yeah.
And this might be getting into some of the tactical stuff, but what if they're sitting there thinking, well, what do I even share? Like, what am I even, you know what I'm saying? So maybe give me some ideas around that.
Yeah, there's a couple, and podcasting is the Trojan horse for this. And to put a fine tooth on that, it solves a lot of problems of personal branding. It's why I started the Radcast at the same time that I started going heavy on my personal brand, because I knew, okay, am I going to be the guy that has a camera following me around? It's like all these non-interesting moments in your life. Like, that's not me. I don't want that kind of voyeurism into my every moment of my life. And I'm probably not that interesting enough to keep that going. But the biggest thing was, okay, but podcasting, okay, I'm going to share my knowledge. I'm going to have amazing guests. I'm going to do what we're doing right now in here. It creates a natural vehicle with which content gets created and what you share gets created, because it forces a dialogue. It forces an audio video, because if you're smart and you're doing it right, you're recording audio and video like we're doing now, and you're getting these moments in time with which to share your opinions. And it creates, again, a natural moment for that to happen. Whether you do it once a month, twice a week, whatever that sequence is, it's giving you moments with which to create content and things that you can share. So my number one recommendation when people are like, I don't know what I'm going to share, we'll start a podcast, because then you'll start talking. And if, look, not everyone's great at podcasting, but it doesn't matter. People relate to different people. That's what people don't understand. It's like tomato. Like, some people love me, some people hate me, some people don't relate to me, some people don't, but they might relate to you, no matter how you think you sound. And so all of this comes with the notion that you have to kind of get used to seeing yourself and hearing yourself and being okay with it. And then ultimately having a perspective to share and being ready to share it. Because that's the one thing that people don't talk about, is like, well, just talk about something. Well, you have to be at a point in your career or a point in whatever your specialty is that you do feel comfortable talking about it, and that you do have an opinion on it. Because nothing's worse than saying, yeah, just share content, but you're just not at a point where either you don't have the specialization, you don't have the confidence, whatever that might be. You definitely have to have checked those boxes before it can happen. But if it's not podcasting, then I think it's naturally like finding a way with which, if you don't start the podcast, then start going on other podcasts, other shows. Because if you are the best life insurance person in America, or you think you are, and you know everything, there's hundreds of life insurance shows that you could go on. And then again, it's creating content for you. And so I'm a huge, proponent of podcasting as the source of content. And then if not that, then you do get into the land of, well, get you a nice camera and a ring light and a microphone and start sharing perspective. But there's other ways too, as we kind of delve into more of the PR avenues.
Okay, cool. And then, I mean, podcasting basics, you know, if they're just getting started, I mean, just get started, as you said, right? Have a
Yeah.
perspective you want to share. You've grown a show that's number one in your space. And, you know, obviously we've done well in our show, not quite as well as yours yet, but I'm excited about it. So I want to hear, beyond just doing the podcast, what's helped you guys create as big of a movement as you have with it?
Yeah. You know, we have a couple mantras. I mean, I'm going to get to like the brass tacks, but a couple of things is never be ordinary. I mean, we're it's the Radcast.
Mm-hmm.
I own an ad agency called Radical, and the Radcast, that all kind of flows together, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and I joke all the time. With my team, I'm like, hey, the name on the door says Radical.
Mm-hmm.
You I have given you a license to be different, to break through. Every client that hires us, if they go, man, this is too far out there, I'm be like, you hired a fucking agency named Radical, and you're telling me, like, okay, what are we talking about here? So the Radcast, I gave us license immediately to be different as a marketing podcast, and we're very much a mainstream marketing podcast. Like, I talk about my history and experience, and I create lessons out of certain things, but we're not today we're going to learn about digital marketing and digital marketing, you know, like we are not a scientific, like down and dirty business podcast. It's more of a mainstream podcast. And I did that for a few different reasons. One, that's more my personality, but also leveraging, and part of just my overall tactics, goes into marketing, personal branding, and podcasting. I call it borrowed interest. So as soon as I could get, you want to have the biggest names on your shows that you can have as early as you can, because it brings credibility and listeners into it. Because again, you know, we had, you know, the voice of the Octagon, Bruce Buffer, on. We had Mark Randolph, the founder of Netflix. And it's like, well, what do they have to do with business? Well, Mark Randolph, pretty obvious, started one of the largest companies in the history of America and most successful. Bruce Buffer is one of the greatest celebrity entrepreneurs ever, owns like 7 companies. He's got a liquor company, an energy drink company, like things you probably don't even know. So he's talked, about his time on the Octagon, and his brother who's ready to rumble and all that. All that was great. And he brought brand recognition with his name, but he's probably one of the best business guests I've had on in the history of the show. And so we leveraged and leaned into this notion of, okay, Ryan's going to be Ryan. We're not going to be mainstream. We have a topical news edition on Fridays that's laid back, irreverent, quasi funny, depending on your humor. But we talk about marketing news through a different lens. And then on Tuesdays, we have the guest episode, and we always went and aimed, trying to outkick our coverage, so to speak, on every time, asking for guests when we were, had 100 downloads a month, and always went bigger than what we were. And that was always our prep. Hey, look, if you want to be taken seriously, it's not fake it till you make it. It's go big or go home. Like, okay, I invested in the studio. Okay, I had a good mic. I made sure that I asked bigger guests than what maybe our show commanded at the time. I made sure that I made them feel like $1 million and sent them gear and was nice to them and made them feel special. And like, we've just always acted and behaved bigger than we were. And then suddenly you look around and you go, whoa, we're number one. Like, it happens. You sort of manifest it. And so that's my biggest recommendation to people is if you're going to do it, then do it. And look, I sat down, like I started Radical. It was me, had my clients. I'd been in the industry a lot, so I had some good clients, but it was just me. But I committed to doing 1 episode a week in those early days. And come hell or high water, I was doing that episode. And I committed to it. And now we have done 2 episodes a week for almost 4 years, and we've never missed, period. End of story. Even if I go on vacation, then we pre-record something or we do a best of episode. We don't miss. And that's the one thing you just have to commit to. You got to go all in or it just won't work.
Yeah, I think that advice, whether someone's doing a podcast or not, but what you talked about of basically thinking and acting bigger than you already were, but stepping into that already is, I mean, that's just amazing success advice right there.
Yeah. And that's what I've done my entire career. I'll say that.
Okay.
Like, that's when I was 21.
Yeah.
You're coming into the ad agency business, talking and being put on account as like the lowest man on the totem pole. I didn't like act too big for my britches. Like, I mean, I knew my role. Like, I mean, there's a fine line of like arrogance and like, acting like you could do anything and being confident. And so being confident and acting like you belong, then you'll belong, But if you play the short game, the small game, and go, I'm just here to get coffee, I'm just listening, or whatever. And like when we did our podcast, if we just go, and so we made the production value bigger than it was. I had a voiceover do our intro. I had like stuff that really didn't cost that much money, but added production value and added interest and made us seem bigger than we were, combined with maybe my natural confidence. Like it always kind of elevated it. And I think if you go into anything in the world in that way, it tends to lead to success.
What do you think? You've been really successful in your life in many areas. What do you think, if you could narrow it down, I guess maybe how you believe differently about success than most? How would you describe that?
Yeah. Success for me is freedom. Like I take all the personality tests and done all these things, and it always comes out to like freedom's important to me. Like, I'm like, if you've watched Dirty Dancing, don't put baby in the corner. Don't put Ryan in a cage. Okay. It's like, I value my freedom and like doing what I want, when I want, how I want. And I'm willing to work hard and make money and be successful to get the freedom.
Right.
And so that's been my version of success. And I think, well, how did I get there? I have a really natural, innate ability to not look in the rearview mirror and to not dwell.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if it's nature, nurture. It's got to be partly nature. Because I've had many moments. I mean, like, I joke all the time when I have a pity party, I got streamers, balloons, and clowns that come to my pity party, but it lasts for about an hour.
Right. Okay.
It's bad for an hour. You do not want to be in my pity party unless you're a balloon or a streamer and like all that, but you don't want to be a person at the party for that hour. It's a bad hour, but I get over it in a hurry. I turn it to an edge and I don't look back. And you've
been like that always?
I don't think I was like that like when I was 16 necessarily.
Okay.
I don't know. It flipped for me in my career where I think I just stopped caring too much about what people thought and recognizing that was going to be. And don't get me wrong. We all think about, like, I'm not going, I don't care what anybody thinks. It's not that I'm immune to that, but I stopped letting paralyzing decisions and impacting ultimately where I was going. Because if I had done that, I probably would have never gotten to where I am. And I think once you unlock that, you get real fucking powerful. I mean, real powerful when you can unlock at least enough. We all think about it. We all have feelings. We all have egos. But when you can unlock it to where it doesn't truly impact your actions, it gets real powerful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I find common with successful people is that idea is that you get to a point of where they have unlocked it. They get to a point where it's just, all right, it's not that they don't care. We don't care what people think. It's not that way, but not going to let it affect you. Not going to let it impact your
you have to decide what successful for you is. Like,
right.
I mean, there's people that would look at, my bank account and go, holy shit, that's success. And there's people who would go, I can't believe you don't have more in your 401k.
Right.
Your Roth IRA is not. And I'm like, well, I don't prescribe. I want to be comfortable and I want to take care of my family, but I don't prescribe to let me wait until I'm 70 to have my nest egg all in order so that I have a bad hip, a bad ankle, 3 new knee replacements, and I'm going to want to go to Disney World every year. No, I want to live it now. I want to be responsible about it, but let's share some of the spoils now and not when we're, trying to just kick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense, man, for sure. It's funny. As you talk about freedom, I'm the exact same guy. It's been my driving force for so long and why I've been in business and everything for that exact reason too.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's like most entrepreneurs, or even if you're not, whether you own the company or not, I think you can have that kind of mindset if what's important to you. It's like,
right.
Because I mean, I have a lot of nice things. I have a houseboat and like things that maybe not people most have, but I can have a way bigger house if I didn't love my freedom more. Like I like having controlling my time. I give up maybe some of the cash to control my time.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to come back to social media branding for a sec. So we're talking ideally, either you start a podcast, you have one, you get on one, start getting on shows, there's content for you right there, right? Beyond that, whatever way they're going to do it, beyond that, what are if we can get into maybe a nitty gritty, how do they begin to start growing that? Because, I know there's people that post every day and we're not growing, right? I mean, there's people. And so anyways, I want to hear some ideas on that.
Here's the real truth on that. If you post every day and you're not growing, and you're really, then you need to look in the mirror and you need to have someone else. You need to hire me, and I'll take a look at your baby. I'll call it ugly or kick it down the street. Someone needs to evaluate. Because, like, I'm just saying, like, and I don't put lipsticks on pigs. I turn pigs into beauty queens. So, like, but for real,
this is like South Carolina. These are the kind of stuff that happens.
No, that's the phrases though. People
like, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Put a lipstick on that pig. No, you can't put lipstick on a pig.
I've never heard that.
You can't. That pig is still going to be ugly. So here's the deal. If you're doing what I get this all the time. I've been posting. And one or two things happens. I post every day. I don't get any traction. I get no traction. I don't know why I'm getting traction. I hate this stuff. I'm going to quit.
Right.
And it's one of two things. Number one, I go look at their stuff. They've posted 32 times ever. And they've been on social media for 3 years. And they said it didn't work. And I go, you're full of shit. You haven't. You didn't commit. You didn't go all in. You posted 30 times in 3 years.
Right.
Or number two, they got 3,487 posts. And they have 247 followers. And I go look at those posts, and they don't say anything interesting. They're not entertaining. They're not educating, or they're not authentic. It's one of those three things, and it's real obvious. They're either playing the part that they aren't, and no one's relating to them. They don't really have true knowledge or insight, and they're imparting nothing that's of value to anyone else. And they're just checking boxes. Like they're in a room, the same backdrop. They're like the exact same thing. And they're like, and when I'm thinking about insurance, I just think, it's really about them and not you. It's like, okay, that's a commercial. Like I've seen that commercial. That's not an insight. And so it's one of those things. It's one of those, you didn't really commit, and you didn't go all in, you didn't do it, truly. Or you have not found or had you've wanted to do this in a vacuum. You've wanted to do it the way Jimmy wanted to do it. Jimmy wanted to do it his way and didn't want any counsel, didn't go to any coaches, didn't go to any classes, didn't hire Ryan's team, didn't do anything, and thinks that everybody's out to get them because their 234 followers with their 4,000 posts isn't taking off. Right. And look, I'll say this. You can get all of those things right, and it doesn't mean you're going to get 1 million followers. And you do have to be realistic. But if you do these things right, you will start to grow. And look, you have to play the game. And you have to sometimes got to boost some posts, got to pay for some ads. When you start going on other podcasts and you start sharing that content, you do some collaboration. You take people that have a big circle of influence and you have a small one, and you make their circle onto your circle so that your circle raises. The high tide raises all ships. You want your boat to fly high, or you want your plane to fly high, you need to get on the jumbo plane, for a little bit. And so there's a lot of tactics for how to do this, but the reality is people either want the shortcut that doesn't exist, or they haven't gone all in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think like most things in life too, I mean, I know there isn't a shortcut. Anything you want to get better at, maybe pay for great coaching. It's going to help you grow, right? No matter what it is.
Yeah,
right?
but you got to implement it. You got to put it to action.
Totally.
I mean, there's a lot of nothing gets me more fired up than the everybody that likes to go to, all the pump up seminars. Let's go see Grant Cardone's 10X. Mm-hmm. And Grant gives you all these great things. And I love Grant. Grant's come on my show. He's a friend. Right. But like, you can go get pumped up at those conferences and then not do shit. Then nothing happens.
Yeah. It's in the implementation. There's no doubt. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we have today more than ever, maybe a little bit because social media, but there's so much information available that I think the majority of people become information consumers.
Yeah.
Rather than we're turning that into specialized knowledge and actually doing something with it. Right.
That's right. And knowledge has gotten real cheap with
For
AI
sure
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Good to average knowledge has gotten really cheap. You got to layer on humanity and your own experience. That's where it gets interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome, man. That makes a lot of sense.
And I do think like you got to find, I'll call it a shtick. I don't mean that because it's non-authentic, but you got to find your thing, like whatever that thing is.
How would you describe yours? What's your shtick?
I mean, I've got this weird, I think like combination of like, at first it's like, who's this Southern guy like talking about stuff like Southern charm meets, wait, he knows his shit, like if you really listen long enough, you listen for 15 seconds, you're like, who's this country bumpkin, depending on where you're from. But then when you get to know me, like, it's like, okay, he actually knows his shit. He's really, okay. That's insightful. And I don't know. I think it's insight meets Southern charm, some combination of those things. I think it also helps that, most people tell me I'm good on the mic. Like I have a good radio voice.
For sure you do.
So that never hurts. Yeah. So some combination of all of that. And then like, I try to be me. I mean, I'm just Ryan Alford, like, and I haven't met anyone else that's other than there is an African-American golfer now named Ryan Alford who's really getting good, and he's killing me. He's starting to like, I own all the SEO for my name. And I'm like, I'm going to have him on the Radcast. It'd be like Ryan Alford, host Ryan Alford. And it's like, dude, can you stop being good at golf because you're really crushing my SEO? Because he started like crash into it a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah. I mean, you just got to be yourself, but you do have to find your thing. Like it's like, who's the guy, the comedian that does, behind the two ferns or whatever? Like he's got the two ferns on stage, and it helps that he was a comedian. He was known in like some of those movies and stuff. But it's like, find something, find a device, find something that makes you stand out, and like there's exercises to figure that out.
Cool. It's awesome, man. Hey, I want to switch gears entirely. You built great companies. You got this great podcast. You got this great life. And I know too, you were telling me that you're a father of 4 too. So yes. I'm a father of 2 girls. And I know one of the things that comes up lots for people is they're building this new life of theirs, and maybe in the early stages of their business or career, or wanting to go to new levels. But you know where I'm going with this is how do I build a great business, financial life, and a great family? And I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. You have to set like, there's 2 things. One, you got to want to be there.
Right. I
think a lot of people put the crutch on, well, I'm trying to grow these businesses, but they don't really like their wife, or they're not getting along with and they use these as crutches because there's a lot of time in the week, and you can do both things, but you have to put a line in the sand and go, this is life and this is work. And I've always had non-negotiables. Like, I'm going to be at every one of my son's games. I'm going to be at 4 boys. I'm going to coach as many things that I'm qualified to coach, soccer not being one. But like, and so you set these non-negotiables, and look, there's a lot of hours in the day. Like if you want to get up at 6 a.m., go to the gym, get the kids to school, do whatever you do, work all day, and then at 4:30, 5 o'clock or whatever that is, go be a dad.
Yeah.
And then if you've got work to do, instead of watching Netflix,
Totally.
knock out some work from 9 to 11.
Yeah.
I have these discussions because I understand it, and it's one thing to be. You're never on the other side of it. I mean, like I'm too young to I'm not on the other side of success or failures. I mean, things can go south. I mean, who knows? But I do think no matter what I do, once you set that standard and once you set that divide in your mind, you can fit it all in. But you have to make the decision that you want to do that. Because what I find when I get underneath guys that not because you're asking it, because it's a very common question. I know nothing about you, Ben, as far as this goes. But like a lot of people that ask it, they don't really want to be that guy. They don't want to be the family guy. They're there because the handbook told them to, but really they just want to be alone and doing their own thing. And so in that, no one's judging anyone for that. But we all as human beings tend to do what we want to do.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. Yeah. I love it. I found when I was, how old was I? I was already probably 10 years, not quite 9 years into building a company and a business for a while before we had kids. And, early in my career, I just worked all the time. But then when we started having our first daughter, I thought, man, that's not what I want to do, and it was amazing to me, to your point of how much hours are in a day. I think one of the things with people that work lots too is that there's a big difference between being away from your home and productive effort that we're putting into what we're doing. And I couldn't agree with you more. There's definitely time to do both.
And like what to that point, I love that point, Ben. It's like coming up in the ad agency business, it was like a badge of honor. Hey, man. How many hours you worked last weekend, man?
That's right.
How many I put an all-nighter last night, man? We got it all night. We worked on that campaign till 4 a.m., man. When the ideas really came out at like 2 p.m. And the other 12 hours were boozing, trying to noodling it to make it better. And really, ultimately, just so the next day you can go, we worked till 4 a.m., man. It's like, it was like a badge of honor in New York, like how many hours you worked and when the reality is you're only productive for so long.
For sure.
You run out of ideas, you run out of stamina. No matter how much coffee you have. And sometimes the good ideas happen from 8 to 11. Okay. That's sometimes that's necessary. I don't want to say it's never necessary. And sometimes you're putting a pitch deck together that takes 44 hours and you only have 3 days. Those things happen. But I think it was sort of a badge of honor, like for my industry, like coming up, like for some of those things, more than the true effectiveness of those hours that were being worked.
Totally. Yeah. I relate 100%. Ours was, exactly. First one in the office, last one to leave. That was
exactly. Big, and like you're like the boss is looking out, like, earn the boss's, affection or what. I mean, and I think luckily we're past a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot.
It's shifting.
It's shifting. And I'm all for work. Look, nobody wants my team to be more effective for 6 hours of the day than me.
Yeah.
But just be effective in those 6 hours and then go do whatever the fuck you want. Like,
I love it.
Because I don't expect 12 hours of effectiveness, because it's just not going to happen. We don't have that mental capacity and you're just going to have diminishing returns.
100%. I mean, and the more it gets studied, the more and more productivity is studied too. It's not, we're not robots, I mean, there is no nonstop, right? So you get way more done, way more focused. No, it's awesome, man. Listen, everybody, Ryan's got the Radcast, so go check that out. And then I want to hear, Ryan, I saw a couple of your clips on it, so I don't know a lot about it, but I'd love to hear you talk about Vacay, what you guys are doing there, and tell us more. Yeah,
man. Look, plant-based medicine at some point in time got frowned upon. For some reason, the switch came on that pharmaceutical lab-based solutions good, plant-based bad. At its core, vacay is premium plant-based products that boost and take your mood to the place that you need it to. If you're sleepy, we help you go to sleep. If you're stressed, we help take away stress. If you need a boost, we give you a boost. It's all plant-based. We have mushroom products, not magic mushrooms, but fully legal mushroom-based products. We do have CBD hemp-based products, but this is all stuff that works. The biggest thing for us is having things, because there's a lot of these supplements now that just have a good label on them. They look good, but they don't really do anything. All of our stuff has a purpose and it works. All premium ingredients, third-party lab tested, and coming from two guys that are executives and run multiple companies that are not stoners, and we're not like people hear plant-based or they hear CBD, they hear these terms, and I think they stigmatize them, but we're trying to really bring it to the mainstream. And what I say is we're trying to make alternative medicine no longer alternative.
I love that, man. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I avoid pharmaceuticals at all costs for myself. So I love what you're doing there. I think that's amazing stuff.
Yeah. And I think that, look, we're in a world that's overstressed. Everybody needs to take a vacay.
That's good, man. That's good. It's really good.
Man. But that's takeavacay.com if you want to learn more.
Takeavacay.com. There you go, everybody. Go check it out.
VAYCAY, the only way to spell vacay.
You got it. You got it. Hey man, I've loved our conversation today, and really glad we got to do this together. I know it's been amazing value, not just for our audience, but for myself too. So thank you for everything you're doing. You're always putting out great content, great ideas, and giving people tangible steps they can take. So today was no exception to it.
My pleasure, man. That's appreciate the opportunity to come on, and I give away all my best advice because execution is everything. But I'm also I want to help people. That's the goal. Whatever comes with that, it never, having that mindset never leads to bad things. And so, I'm very accessible. Hit me up in the DMs, wherever. I just appreciate you, Ben.
Thank you, brother. And on that note, I know the Radcast I told them about. Can you remind everybody your Instagram? I think that's the best place to find you.
Yeah, it's Ryan Alford, ALFORD. So you'll see the blue check mark everywhere. I'm verified everywhere before you could buy it.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Instagram's definitely my most active. But for sure, or LinkedIn.
Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. I know you love today. Share this episode. Make sure to tag Ryan, tag myself as well. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll see you soon.